I am so grateful for indie games. In an era of AAA stagnation, indies are taking risks and pushing the medium forward as a legitimate form of high art. The problem is that there are so many indie games across a plethora of genres that there is no way I could play anywhere close to all of them. That being said, I've played many, both well-known and obscure. Putting emphasis on variety, experimentation, and complete cohesive execution, here are some of the indies I recommend the most. Let's get right into the reviews. Number 1. This was the indie poster child of the early Xbox Live Arcade days. A 2.5D, something 2D-ish, 16-bit inspired puzzle platformer. It's Fez. You can rotate the 3D world around, but can only see and interact with a 2D projection of it. This central mechanic is used to explore and solve puzzles in its Metroidvania-like map. The game is made all the better with its great chiptune-inspired soundtrack, this coming from someone who isn't an avid enjoyer of that style of music. Fez's smart design and mind-bending main mechanic make it completely understandable why it was the face of indie games for so long. Number 2. Most games about war put you in the boots of a soldier, but what if you were put in the shoes of a civilian? In this War of Mine, you play as a band of survivors in a war-torn city, and must survive until the ceasefire. By day, you build up your shelter and make sure all the basic needs such as hunger and sleep are met by your crew. By night, you can send out one of your members to scavenge one of a handful of locations in town for resources, many of them dangerous, even deadly. This game isn't easy, and forces you to make tough decisions. All of your members likely won't survive. I like how this game de-glorifies war, focusing on the real victims, the people who had the least to do with it. Number 3. I don't want to spoil this game because I believe it's best going in blind as I did. Soma has one of the best stories I've ever experienced in a video game. However, its mind-numbing horror gameplay is at odds with its high-minded plot. I actually think this game is better played in easy mode, which prevents dying. Does that turn Soma into a walking simulator? Probably, but it's definitely the best one I've ever played. Number 4. No dialogue, and it can still tell such an eerie, off-putting story. From the people behind Limbo, also worth playing, Inside. This game tells you everything, from gameplay to narrative, without saying a single word. Its art has such amazing composition, its gameplay so intuitive and natural, and its soundscapes reverberate the world, making it feel both alive and dead. Number 5. The best of 3D platformers. It's a hat in time. Its movements are fluid and can be chained together like Mario 64. It allows for enough course correction to feel appropriate when taking on more intense platforming challenges. Its soundtrack is also better than it has any right to be. This game feels magical, with plenty of charm, and is such a blast to play. Number 6. Do you want a sandbox where you can destroy anything and it will react believably? Where buildings can come crashing down, either by blowing it up or setting it ablaze, complete with physically billowing smoke? The closest we have to that right now is Teardown. Not only does it offer a level creator and a bunch of community maps, the heist-based gameplay of its main campaign is unbelievably satisfying. You have an infinite amount of time to survey the level and where all the valuables you need to steal are, but as soon as you pick one of them up, an alarm is triggered and you only have a minute to escape. The challenge and fun comes from strategically destroying to create the optimal route to steal all the required items and escape just in the nick of time. Number 7. A speedrunning parkour anime FPS card game. The devs really nailed the gameplay here. The levels are super short, often under a minute, which encourages replayability. The friend leaderboard further motivates going back for better times to best them. They handled the guns as cards mechanic really well. These cards are littered throughout the levels and you can pick them up. They have gun abilities with limited ammo as the primary fire, and the secondary fire discards the gun card entirely for a parkour move. The real fun comes from memorizing the levels and card placements to get the best time, optimizing the cards, knowing when to fire and when to discard. However, The other part of Neon White is the visual novel part. Despite many taking issue with the story, it still has an overwhelmingly positive rating on Steam, like every other game on this list. The main gameplay is just that good, and they have a fast forward button for the visual novel sections. I'm glad they included that. Number 8. This game does an amazing job of combining two different genres and wrapping them in an aesthetic that fits both perfectly. Who doesn't want to be a cute little lamb who starts a cult and ventures into the forest hunting heretics? Yeah, I'm talking about Cult of the Lamb. The opposites that blend really well with each other don't end there. The entire game's cute meets creepy vibe goes so well with every aspect of the cultish presentation in both the base building and roguelite gameplay. I'm astonished by how creative the team was with all the features they implemented and how they fit so well together. Though when you have a theme as expansive as cults, I'm sure they write themselves. On my first playthrough, the game felt like the perfect length, not too long and not too short. Then I went back when they added more post-game content. The developers have still been coming out with free updates since this game's release in 2022. Their social media department has also been killing it. Please keep it that way so this statement doesn't age poorly. Number 9. One of the fastest, craziest, and most satisfying 2D platformers I've ever played. In Pizza Tower, you don't simply run from one side of the map to the other. You go through labyrinthian levels to reach the first goal, and then you have to run all the way back to the exit in a limited time. It's a ridiculously fun game loop. I'm gonna be honest, I was initially put off by the crude aesthetic, but it grew on me and totally fits the insane nature of the game. Hats off to this team for making such an amazing debut title. Number 10. Worlds Within Worlds. Within Worlds. Within Worlds? Cocoon's a real good puzzler. You play as a bug and can hop out of the world you were just in, then pick it up and carry it around. You can then find other orbs with other worlds, hop in and out of them, put them inside each other, and rearrange them. When holding these world orbs, they can give you a special ability that helps you solve puzzles. And this is a mind-bending puzzler at points, especially near the end. This game comes from the new studio founded by the game designer behind Limbo and Inside, so it's no surprise that the game design here is also superb, and entirely communicated without dialogue or text. Just straight gameplay. It could only be achieved through this medium. I love it. Now for some honorable mentions. I don't like the Sonic games. Even beating 1, 2, and Adventure, I could never get into them. So it was a bit of a shocker that people compared Freedom Planet so much to Sonic. It makes sense as it started as a Sonic fan project, but in my opinion it's a lot better. Sorry Sonic fans, no offense. Freedom Planet 2 is also excellent, and longer than I expected. The level design in that one is very cool, as each of the 30 levels introduces and plays with a new mechanic, progressively getting more challenging. It adds a lot of novelty to that game to prevent it from getting stale. There are things I still like more about the first game, such as the soundtrack, and I'd recommend both if you like platformers with semi-open stages that have a focus on speed. Feel free to skip the stories though. This game is not a Metroidvania, and neither are plenty of others like Cave Story. Shantae and the Pirate's Curse is, however, a very good action platformer with Metroidvania elements. I've played most of the other Shantae games except the most recent, Seven Sirens and Risky Revolution, and the Pirate's Curse is definitely my favorite, with the tightest pacing and levels. They are all charming games, but you can't go wrong with this one. I'm honestly surprised I didn't include any Metroidvanias on this list, considering how much I love Super Metroid. From the creators of the most well-known Digipen project, Nitronic Rush, Distance is a single-player adventure racer. It's astonishing to me that there aren't more games like this, as I think combining racing with platforming mechanics and roller coaster-like levels is kind of a no-brainer. Though you can see this similar design in games like Trackmania, GTA Online's courses, and even older games like F-Zero GX. Your car in Distance has a lot of moves. It can jump, stick to walls, and even fly. There are plenty of levels and even community-created ones. If this sounds like your thing, I can easily recommend it. A 3D platformer, but the levels are trucks. No, seriously. Clustertruck is an actual game, and it is actually really fun. A literal blast to hop from truck to truck in a game you would never ever see come out of a AAA game studio. I just love absurd games like this that have a sense of humor, one that even extends the name of the game itself. Okay, so this game is much more serious than the last one. Night in the Woods is a narrative game where you play as a college dropout, May, who returns back to her Rust Belt mountain town. It's rare to see games centered around transitioning from adolescence to adulthood. This is more story than game, and that's okay. It being interactive makes the experience different, as you can choose who to spend time with each day, which naturally impacts which parts of the story you see and which parts you don't. It also helps to immerse in its dying Rust Belt town, which, to quote the developers, its vibrancy is the most unrealistic thing about the game. Still, I wish I saw more stories like this in general, personal ones that deal with the challenges of growing up. This is another game that is more of an interactive experience. Before Your Eyes is truly unique in that you navigate, interact, and make choices with your eyes, simply by looking around the screen. Take that, Apple Vision Pro. This mode of input changes how it's experienced. It does require a webcam, so make sure you have one. I'm not going to spoil the story, but many have called it heart-wrenching. Go check it out. A dystopian, claustrophobic, neon-soaked city underground, filled with human-like robots, and you experience this journey as a cat. Yup, Stray. The environments look fantastic for an indie studio, not just graphically but in large part due to their design, particularly their lighting, which, if you know me or this channel, is an art in and of itself. Stray sets itself apart in more than just playing as a cat, and helps you experience a unique and very dense environment from the perspective of a small and nimble feline. There really aren't enough ball-type games. Cut from the cloth of Super Monkey Ball and more so Marble Blast Ultra, CBT, which stands for Crazy Ball Time, is a ball-rolling game, complete with power-ups. The difference is that CBT is unhinged, both in its high-speed gameplay and its zany demeanor. CBT actually gave me the push I needed to work on my ball-type game. Coming to Steam. Eventually. Lead hundreds, even thousands of humans to the goal. I've been having a lot of fun with Humanity recently. A well-polished game where you play as a dog that literally barks orders at humans. Some of the levels can get pretty brain-racking. Not only that, it doesn't hesitate to shake up the mechanics multiple times throughout its campaign, to the point that the game even switches genres. One of the most impressive things is just how many people can be on screen at one time. It really is astonishing to see over 1,000 human NPCs following your commands and even fighting enemies in the later levels. I honestly wish there were more of these types of games. The variety seen in this one and the massive difference between it and other NPC commanding games like Pikmin shows that it's a central mechanic with lots of untapped potential. And finally, it's the super hard platforming game, not Super Meat Boy. It's Celeste. Really darn hecking good, super frustrating but fun and challenging platforming. Each level has a new gimmick that it plays with really well. The music and sound design are fantastic too. I also like how it incorporates a story when it honestly could have gotten away without one. When a game lacks any kind of story, it just feels like there's an aspect missing to me, so I'm glad it's here. It also resonated with a lot of people. This game has so many overwhelmingly positive accolades, I shouldn't have to convince you to play it. So go play it and all the other games on this list. My next list will feature VR games. For anyone who doesn't have a VR headset, the formerly best one, the Quest 2, is only $200, and can play all the VR games, both PC and standalone, so there's not much of an excuse. Though considering this channel's existing audience, I figure that won't be a problem for most of you. Oh wait, how many of you own Half-Life Alyx? And you've never played it? You know VR headsets can play games too, right? Anyway, thanks to my patrons as always. Join me next time. Bye.